All right, so last section, follow along in your notes. It's all about parallel and perpendicular lines. So two lines are parallel if they have the same slope, but they have different y-intercepts. If they have the same slope and the same y-intercept, it's the same line. All right, but if they have different slopes, same slope, different y-intercepts, that means they're rising and they're running at the same rate, so they're going right side by side, never intersecting. That's what it means to be parallel lines. All right, perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. They could have the same y-intercept or different y-intercepts. That part doesn't matter. But you take the slope, you flip it, you change the sign. Opposite reciprocal. What are your questions? So first we are going to practice finding the slope of a line parallel and a line perpendicular to the given equation. So do you all see the equation on the board?
Yeah.
What's the slope of that equation? 2/3. Good. So our current m is 2/3. Parallel lines have the same slope. So the line parallel would have the slope of 2/3. Perpendicular is the one where you actually have to do a little extra work. You have to flip it and change the sign. So instead of 2/3, now it's 3/2, and it was positive, so you have to make it negative. So negative 3/2 would be the perpendicular slope. Questions? And changing the sign for perpendicular.
Wait, that's it?
Can I find the slope right now? No. So before you find the slope of the current line, you have to get it into slope-intercept form. Okay? So how do I find the slope of this one? Or how do I get it in the right form? First, you have to add 4x. Good. So y equals 4x plus 3. Now it's in the right form. What's the m now? 4. So a line parallel would have what? 4. Now, perpendicular, you got to flip it. So if 4 was a fraction, it'd be 4/1. So flip it, you get 1/4, and you change the sign, so it would be negative 1/4. Good. Questions? Part C. How am I going to start this one? Subtract the x first. Good. You got to get the y by itself. So subtract the x. You get 7y equals negative x minus 7. Then divide everything by 7. You end up with y equals negative 1/7 x minus 1. What's the slope of that line? Negative 1/7. So what's the slope of a line parallel to that line? Negative 1/7. It's the same thing. Perpendicular, positive 7. You just flip it, you get 7/1. It was negative, you make it positive. So opposite reciprocal. Flip and change the sign. What are your questions? All right, example 2, are the lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So what we're going to do is find the slope of each line. If the slopes are the same, we're going to say parallel. If they're opposite reciprocals, we're going to say perpendicular. If there's no special relationship, we're going to say neither. Okay? Plan of attack. What should I do on the first equation? Minus the 5x from both sides. Good. Then what? Divide everything by a negative 3. So I get y equals a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So 5/3x. And then 8 divided by negative 3 is negative 8/3. What is the slope of that line? 5/3. Okay, great. Now, on the other one, what should I do? I would subtract the 15 first. So the whole point is to get the y by itself. So if y is in the back, that's fine. You can still get it by itself and then just, flip-flop the sides of the equal sign. So I'm going to move the 15 first. So I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides. Then I'm going to do what?
Divide by 3.
Divide everything by 3. Then I rewrote it. So I'm just going to flip-flop the sides and divide everything by 3. So the y's on the right or the left side. 5x divided by 3 is 5/3 x. Negative 15 or minus 15 divided by 3 is minus 5. What's the slope of this line? 5/3. So these lines are?
Parallel.
Parallel, they're the same. Okay? Yeah, so the last step is the easy step, right? You have to get them both into y equals mx plus b correctly, find the correct slope for each, and then compare them. So there's kind of a lot happening in one problem. Questions?
No.
Parallel, perpendicular, or neither? How should I start the first one?
Subtract 2x.
Subtract 2x from both sides. Divide everything by 3. So I get y equals negative 2/3 x plus 2. Then what? Divide by 2 on the next one. We're still on this one. What's the slope right here? Negative 2/3. Good. All right, and you're correct. On the other one, we're going to divide everything by 2. So what's the slope of that second line?
3.5.
All right, so how are these related?
Perpendicular.
Yeah, they're opposite reciprocals. If you take one, flip it, change the sign, you end up with the other one. So these lines are perpendicular. Questions? All right, here's C. All right, what should I do with that first line? Nothing. It's already in y equals form, right? So what's my slope? Negative 2/3. How should I start the second one?
Subtract 8.
Subtract 8 from both sides. Good.
Divide by 3.
Divide everything by 3, and I'm also going to flip-flop it. Okay? So I'm going to put the y in the front. 2/3 divided by 3 is 2/3 x. Minus 8 divided by 3 is just minus 8/3. What's the slope of that one? 2/3. Okay. How are these related? Neither. They're opposites, but they're not reciprocals. Okay? So you're like halfway there, but it's not close enough. Okay? Neither. Questions? All right. Part D. What's the slope of the first line? 0. What's the slope of the second line?
2.
Undefined. That is an x equals line. Those have a slope undefined. Now, if you have 0 on top of a number and you flip it, what would you get?
0.
No, undefined.
Undefined.
Oh.
So it's parallel?
Parallel lines have the same slope. Do these have the same slope?
Perpendicular.
But if I took 0 over a number and I flipped it, I get undefined. Is there such a thing as a negative 0? A negative undefined? So the negative part doesn't really hold up, but these are actually reciprocals. These are perpendicular. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Perpendicular lines make right angles, so they look like that. Okay? And y equals lines are horizontal, x equals lines are vertical, so it makes sense that an x equals a number and a y equals a number are perpendicular. Kind of fun though. Questions?
Some back.
There is a back. All right, now we're going to write the equation of a line with the given information. So I want an x-intercept equal to 3, and I want it to be parallel to the line y equals negative 5x plus 7.
How do you get that?
X-intercept is also called what?
M.
No, m is my slope. X-intercept is if m is the slope, the x-intercept is the y-intercept. Is that why no one's answering?
Yeah.
Saying it? The y-intercept is the what? B, good. So this is my B. You guys didn't even, wow.
I
Didn't
did. I
even
said
flinch.
you get
They're like, what is she saying? Okay, y-intercept. Sorry. So this is my B, right? Can I steal the M from this guy? Yeah, they're parallel, right? Parallel lines have the same slope. So I have M,
So you do y. So it's negative 5
okay?
plus 3.
I have B, so it would just be y equals negative 5x plus, you got to use the new B though. Don't use the old B. Remember, the parallel lines, they have the same slope, different y-intercepts. So the B is like not important. Just don't even worry about it. So you're stealing the M because they're parallel, and you're using the y-intercept that was given to you. Not the x-intercept. That would be silly. What are your questions? All right. There's one more form we know, though.
So
What now?
Huh?
on the other side is supposed to add 5x.
Yep, just add 5x to both sides, and that's actually slope standard form. We don't have any negatives in the front. We don't have any fractions, so we're actually good to go on that one.
We got slope and
There you go. What are your questions? All right, next example. So now we're given a point that it passes through. So we're given an x and a y.
so you put in.
We're also given a line that is parallel to, however, that line isn't in the right form. So what do I need to do?
Subtract the head.
So yeah, I'm going to start by finding the slope of that line by getting it into y equals mx plus b. So subtract 3x from both sides, then what?
Divide by 1.
Divide by
Negative 1.
negative 1. Good. So what's the slope of that line?
3.
3. So the slope of a line parallel would be
3.
3. Okay? Now, I was given an ordered pair. The ordered pair is an example of an x and a y value that works in the equation. So I'm going to plug negative 1 in for the x. I'm going to plug 3 in for the y. I'm going to use this as my slope. I'm going to find b.
It is 0.
No, because I'm going to add 3 to both sides. What's 3 plus 3?
Oh.
6. So now I have the new b, which is 6. I have the old slope, which is the same. So what's my equation?
Y equals 3 plus 6.
3 plus 6, so 9? Oh, the x. Got it. Don't forget that x.
I did.
You tried to.
I just told you.
All right. Now, if I want to get that in standard form, what would I do?
Subtract 3.
Subtract 3x from both sides. Can I have a negative 3x in the front?
Divide by negative 1.
So divide everything by negative 1 or multiply everything by negative 1. Basically changes all your signs. So you have 3x minus y equals negative 6. Questions? Yes?
Why can't we divide by negative 3?
Where? Here? Why would I want to do that?
I don't know.
That would give me a fraction right here, and in standard form, we don't want any fractions. What? If you divide every term by negative 3, you would have 1 divided by negative 3, which would be negative 1/3 y. And you can't have any fractions in standard form.
Oh. Okay.
All right. Next, we are now looking at lines perpendicular. So we want to pass through the point 0, 7. We want to be, this symbol means perpendicular to. We want to be perpendicular to y equals 3x plus 5. Who has some ideas of what we're going to do? That means perpendicular to. So I want to go through this point, but I want to be perpendicular to this guy.
We're going to do 7 equals 3 times 0 plus 5.
If it was parallel, you'd be right. Except you wouldn't put plus 5, you put plus b, and you'd find the new b. But these are perpendicular, so I can't use 3 as my slope. What do I have to use?
No, I don't.
Perpendicular slopes are what? You got to flip it, you got to change the sign.
Oh, so you
Opposite reciprocals. So negative 1/3 is my new m. Now, you said use the 5. Do I care at all about the b of my old equation?
No.
The only thing I'm stealing from here is the information about the m. I don't even care what this is. Not important. This is what's important. Now, do I need to do 7 equals 0 times... Oh, no. Do I need to use this as my x and my y? No, why not? What?
It's already in,
It's already what?
It's already in a pair.
I'm looking for my b. So I usually use an x and a y pair, but why do I not really need to this time?
Because the x is 0.
The x is 0. What'd you learn yesterday when the x value is 0?
The slope is 0?
No. Yeah, this is b. This is the y-intercept already. Okay? So we already have the b. It's just not said the y-intercept is 7 or b equals 7, but they give us an ordered pair that is the y-intercept. Okay? Now, if you didn't recognize that, you would just do 7 equals negative 1/3 times 0 or plus b, and you'd get a b of 7 anyway. This is just not necessary in this one. Do you all see why?
Yeah.
Yep. But if you did it, that's fine. Okay? Here we are. How do I get to standard form?
Add 1/3.
Add 1/3 x. Good. And then multiply everything by 3 because we cannot have fractions. So those would cross out. You get 1x or x plus 3y equals 21. Questions? Yep, last example, then we'll start some homework. So now I want to pass through the point -4, -2, and I want to be perpendicular to 2x minus 12y equals -15.
Oh, we got to subtract 2x.
Yeah, the first thing I need to do is find the slope. And what's important about the slopes? They're perpendicular. So once I find it, what am I going to do? Flip it and change the sign. So opposite reciprocals, okay? But first I got to find it. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. Then what?
Divide by 12.
Divide by
Negative.
negative 12. When you divide by negative 12, a negative over a negative is a positive. 2 over 12 is 1/6. Back here, a negative and a negative is a positive. They're both divisible by 3. So that's how you get 5/4. However, this isn't really important. If you didn't reduce it, I probably wouldn't even notice, okay? So the slope of this line is what? 1/6. So the perpendicular, thank you, is -6. Flip it and change the sign, okay? So M and then the perpendicular symbol means the slope perpendicular is -6. Now what? If you just called it M or the new M, that'd be fine. As long as you can keep them straight. All right, now I need the new B. I don't want this B. That's the old B. I need a new B. So what is it? -2, because I still have this X and Y I haven't done yet. -2.
-6 times -4 plus B.
Very good. So plug in this X and Y. They're like the clues to find the B, right? So -2 equals 24 plus B. So subtract 24 from both sides, you get -26. So my equation is Y equals -6 X minus 26. And then we got to write it a whole other way, but in this case it's going to be easy because you can just add 6x to both sides. And there you go.
Okay, why did y'all do, how come y'all didn't do 1/6? Like, why did you?
Because they're perpendicular. So 1/6 is the slope of our first line. Perpendicular, though, you got to flip it and change the sign. All right, are we good? Okay, our summary today, we learned what?
Parallel and perpendicular line.
Now, the symbol for parallel is this. So I'm going to use it. Parallel and perpendicular is like the upside down T.
We learned about 2.
Okay, this looks like an 11 almost. That's the symbol for parallel. That's the symbol for perpendicular. We learned about parallel and perpendicular lines and their slopes. I guess that would be plural, right? All right, homework.